I think what I want to talk about here is AI bias the most. And so AI bias is where you trust AI more than you ought to. Mm-hmm. So if you take a tool like ChatGPT or even GitHub's Copilot, this is a more tool designated LLM designated for coding. When it gives you an answer, you're way more confident in that answer than you should be. And because these systems are trained out of huge data sets, the one that they're all trained on basically is the Common Crawl data set, which has lots and lots of information from the internet. One of its main sources for understanding code is GitHub public repositories. Now, go take a look at a random public repository and tell me if the quality of code would meet your security practices or not. That's the quality of code that these systems are being trained on. So when it gives you back this answer that technically would work and does it with a lot of confidence and explains what it's doing, then it leads you into this, this thing is way smarter than me. And so going back to your original question, do they understand? I don't know if they understand that. I think that they could explain to you how it works, but they couldn't understand to you why it might give you a bad answer, why it's hallucinating Steve's books, or these other things. And it does it so well with so much confidence. We all have that friend who talks absolute rubbish, but says it with so much gravitas that you start to believe him, even though you know it. That's kind of what AI is to a lot of developers, I feel.
Yeah, I want to interject something there. You talk about all these risks. Just like with my API developers, I want them to go read the OWASP top 10 for API vulnerabilities. OWASP now has a top 10 for large language model risk. And I think it's important to use that as part of the training to go make them aware of what those risks are. I think you got it absolutely right. They know how to interact with it. They're less likely to know how it works.
Yeah, and sorry, I'm following up on MacKenzie's comments as well. You were talking about developers jumping into these tools and security always being a blocker. Hey, don't use it. It's new. We don't know the risks. Everyone's still learning. We are a software company, so we develop. We have developer teams, and this is an efficiency tool, right? This allows people to be more efficient, to create more code faster, better. So if used properly within the right boundaries, there's a lot of potential and a lot of benefits. So what we did in that case was, hey, let's not be a roadblock. We got all together, we brought legal, we brought compliance, we analyzed terms of use, different versions, and we came up with those boundaries. Yes, you can use this tool and this other tool as long as you do use it in this way. You don't use this type of data classified as X. If you are always responsible for what's generated, so it's another tool that can and should be used, but we need to understand how and the boundaries, right?
Yeah, I completely agree. And just to add on that, I don't want to sound like I'm advocating for for blocking generative AIs and companies. These tools are absolutely here to stay. And I feel like the approach that some companies have taken, like Samsung, which has kind of banned the use of them after some data leaks, is not a good idea, because there's so much movement towards these tools that it feels like, I don't know about other areas, but in development and engineering, it feels like if you're not using them, you're going to fall behind and you're not going to meet the productivity of your peers. So even when it's banned, people kind of then go use a VPN or use some other kinds of forms of obstructing it. And then the company's unaware of the risk. Whereas at least if you, what JP said was that you introduce it, you introduce rules around it, then at least it's in the light. It doesn't mean the risks aren't there, right? But it means that at least you're aware and you can monitor it. It's a great point, JP. Yeah.
Yeah, for us at Sonic, well, we run into this a lot, and it's a very difficult situation, because as we build security tools and we build signatures and we deal with machine learning, what's starting to happen right now with the generative AI is what was mentioned earlier, right? The phishing attacks, the spelling errors, and everything else is starting to be, more legitimate. We can't determine what is human versus what is somebody that doesn't have an English background, as an example. So now you're starting to have to find other areas where the generative system is messing up, or perhaps putting some kind of slight watermark in there. But it also helps us, we talk about the negatives, and like you said, there's a tremendous amount of negatives. From the positive standpoint, what we've actually found is what I mentioned earlier, and that is the way to build efficiency. So, we just recently acquired a MSSP, and now we're implementing AI tools into this entire amount of logs that are coming in from all of our firewalls. We've got millions of firewalls out there, millions of telemetry data that's just sitting in a database. Now we're actually starting to feed that in and building out these different models. So this is something that you could not do with humans unless you just built out a tremendous team. And in today's world, the reality is you can't put a human for every single thing. You have to have some kind of automation in there to really take this on. So that's one of the things that we've seen from a positive standpoint. And it's just like what you guys are saying. But the bad guys, as a security company, we're just finding the impact of this is probably way ahead of our time frame. And we're having to catch up very, very quickly because the other guys have a tremendous budget to go in from an R&D standpoint and outrun the good guys nowadays.
Yeah, I'll echo kind of, here at Akamai, where we have employees that want to leverage us. So let's say, there are two ways to think about it. Where are the employees using it, and where are we, the corporation, going to use it?
Yeah.
So the employees, let's take somebody in sales. There's some job security issues, and there's some training issues. I mean, they don't know how to write prompts. So we had a class on prompt writing. We put out a policy on privacy and proprietary information, because you need that policy on how they should be using it. And then the final one is auditability. And that's maybe more on the corporate side, but if you can't audit it, you don't know what happened, and you can't do an investigation. You can't, if you have an accusation, you can't resolve it. On the corporate side, there's places I want to use it. I want to enhance my security operations center. I want to enhance my code development. When I do an internal search, right now it feels like digital archaeology some days. I'd love to just get a paragraph back and not a list of potential sites I can go investigate. So I think there's huge potential here.
Steve, has your company put any kind of restrictions on utilizing, like, for example, the ChatGPT in regards to that kind of content to the public?
So I think what we're saying is it is an enhancement of creativity and should not be used productively, or that's,
Right.
In a production capacity. There you go.
Well, it's in your,
Figured out how to say it.
not external. Yeah.
But we have that with a lot of external resources. I mean, GitHub or pick any other external resource. So it is, again, teaching them the risk they're taking, and then trusting them to make smart risk decisions.